You're listening to the Patriot Nation podcast.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation podcast. It's your boy Pat Lane, as always, here with my guy Matt St. Jean. And this episode, just like all of our episodes, are brought to you by FanDuel, the official sports wagering partner of CLNS Media. Go to FanDuel.com/Boston to sign up to get in on the action today. Matt, it's been a long week here in New England. It's been a long week. Of course, Halloween was nice last night. At least we had that going for us. Do you have a nice Halloween? Hey, do you have a lot of trick-or-treaters last night?
Not really. I don't know, the area where I live in here in Queens, it's like all like the multi-family apartment things. So people trick or treat, and there were people in my building giving out candy downstairs, but it was subdued. Most of the candy eating was me going to the fridge with the large bag of chocolates I have in there.
Smart of you.
Refrigerated Twix, refrigerated Reese's. That's the way to go.
It's the way to go. That is the way to go. That's cool. Yeah, I always have. So I have a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 7-year-old. And my 12-year-old and 10-year-old both went off with their friend groups.
Wow.
And so left just me and my 7-year-old, and then one of his buddies and his dad went out with us, which was fun. But it was weird not being with all of them, like having them go off on their own. My daughter, my oldest, did a thing with one of her friends where she was mustard and her friend was ketchup. It was cute.
I love that.
But it was great. We had a fun time. It was good. They got a ridiculous amount. My 10-year-old got like over 300 pieces of candy. So it's like outrageous how much candy they got. So they were loving it. They had a great time, which was fun. It's always fun. Thanksgiving is a good holiday. It sucks it was on a Tuesday, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I've never been one for costumes anyway. I'm not good at it. When I was a kid, I went as Tom Brady, I think 5 or 6 times as a kid. And I think the only other costume I remember was I went as Jack Sparrow one year when I was in middle school. And
That's good. That's a good one.
Those are the only ones I remember.
I was never big on it either, man. I remember, so one year we went out and we did my buddy wanted to do Blue Man Group. So we bought like this latex, like this blue latex, and we're gonna like paint on ourselves. But he's like, oh yeah, we gotta shave first. So he shaved like an idiot and then put the latex on his face, and it was like burning because he had like little tiny nicks that you couldn't even see, but the latex was like going. It was horrifying. So we actually went in. We went in and borrowed some shoulder pads from the football team at the local high school, and then put like jerseys on or whatever, and walked out with jerseys. It was fun. It was silly, but it was fun. We went as like me and my buddy went to the thrift store one year and went as like 70s porn stars. That was fun. We had like I bought a wig and everything. I had like a purple vest over like a white shirt. That was a good one. That's probably my favorite outfit. But yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, I like that. When I was in college, our whole house did my senior year. Our whole house did Pirates. So there were 11 of us all in the same pirate costume, and we wanted to do pictures around campus in it. So we were driving around in vans, all stuffed in with Pirates of the Caribbean theme blasting. So yeah, that's the last time I did something for Halloween. Really, that's not my. I'm ready for Thanksgiving. Give me family football and food.
I'm down with that. Yeah, the kids. It's funny because like my buddy did the Three Little Pigs and the Big Bad Wolf, and so his oldest kid was the wolf, and then his younger son and him and his wife were like the pigs, and it was cute. But I'm like, we don't really do stuff like that, like me and my family and stuff. My wife doesn't like to dress up and whatever, so it's like, which is fine. And we also like, I feel like it sneaks up on us every year. All of a sudden, we're like, oh my god, it's like we're like 3 days before Halloween, and we're like, what are we gonna be? So, yeah, I haven't done much since that time, but what are you gonna do? So
yeah, these days the scariest thing is looking at this Patriots roster. So that's all the fright I need this time of year.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right about that. So it is interesting that the trade deadline did occur on Halloween, and the Patriots did not make a move. Stayed home, as it were. Right, shut the lights off and stayed home. And I think it's good and bad, right? The Josh Uche report came out that Jacksonville, I think, was interested in Josh. Was it Jacksonville, right? That was interested in Josh Uche, but they got held up on a fifth or a fourth. And I'm like, a fifth or a fourth? So what? So two things. Number one, that tells me that nobody was really interested in Josh Uche, number one. And number two, that tells me that the Patriots were willing to move him for a fourth-round pick, which is surprising, which to me says that they're not going to re-sign him, because why would you trade a guy like that for a fourth-round pick?
Right.
It tells me that Jacksonville, why wouldn't you give up a fourth-round pick for a guy like that? It doesn't make any sense to me.
And it tells it. Honestly, looking at that and the way the Chase Young thing unfolded, it seems like we got a lot of edge guys who are not interested in signing a deal at all right now and would like to hit the market. And because teams are not going to be, part of the appeal of trading for Josh Uche right now is that you get the chance to re-sign him before anybody else does. You can keep a young player locked up, star pass rusher if you'd like. And sounds like he's probably not that interested in signing a deal. And that goes for, what's his face? Chase Young. Look at the price Chase Young got for San Francisco. Yeah, he's not. He's hitting free agency, or he's getting a full market value deal from San Fran.
Yeah.
And Montez Sweat, too. I mean, Chicago gave up a lot for Montez Sweat with that high second-round pick. And it still doesn't look like they're signing him. I assumed they would, but then you hear about how the deal went down, where it sounds like they swooped in to outbid Atlanta at the last second. He had a deal ready to sign with Atlanta. So, I don't think there's a lot of it. The edge market is going to be awful this year. It's going to be like the guys we're talking about are the best guys available, and I think they know it, and they know they can get paid.
I just simply don't understand. If you're the Bears and you suck, and the Bears unequivocally, they suck. They're not a good team. It's the second year in a row that you've done this. And I know that at a certain point, you have to say, we got to build around guys. I get that. But like the guy you're going to build around last year, the guy you were going to build around was freaking Chase Claypool. They gave up the number 32 overall pick for Chase Claypool. It's insanity.
My favorite trade in recent
Even if you thought Claypool could give you something, 32 for that guy is highway robbery.
Yeah.
And then, look, I like Montez Sweat, but if he wasn't going to sign a deal, if you weren't negotiating with him and saying we're going to get him to sign a deal before the offseason, then don't trade for him. Because if he doesn't sign, now you've traded pick number 34 probably at best for nothing.
Yeah, and that's tough. And I get it for Chicago, because you're going to have two picks in the top 10, probably top 5 of the draft. And, this isn't a great pass rusher class coming out. They really need pass rushers in Chicago. So I get the idea of making a move for one.
Right.
But now you have to sign him. You cannot let him go.
100%.
And I look at bring it back to New England too with Uche. You look at the price involved. What this tells me is that they would like Uche back, but they're not breaking the bank for him. They got Judon under contract next year. They have Keon White. Anthony Jennings is also a free agent, but a guy they can bring back. And they can trade for somebody if they like, or if Chase Young is hitting free agency, maybe the Patriots are in on him, depending on what that price is. They got a lot of money, and he's better than Uche is, and he'd be a nice addition to the line. So I think you got some options here. But when you do, I don't hate the way the Patriots approach this deadline, but now you're at a spot where, all right, you either got to be signing these guys or moving on from them because you think you found a better player in free agency. You're not signing Mike Onwenu because a franchise tackle hits the market and you think you can get him. You're not signing Josh Uche because you're going after a Chase Young. You're not bringing back Kyle Duggar because you decide you want to go sign a star free safety, which we'll circle back around and talk about the Miami game here at some point. But we had mentioned the safety usage in that game. And I think there were some interesting things in there as it relates to Kyle Duggar. I had agreed with you about something after the game on Sunday about Marte Mapu's usage in the game. We kind of talked about the way they were using him and why was he a free safety. And when you watch the game back, it actually made a ton of sense and I really liked it. The issue that they have right now is that they basically just have a million strong safeties, which is really good and bad because you have issues taking away the center of the field.
Right.
They put Marte Mapu back there as a free safety so they could bring Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers down into lower areas of the field to be tacklers and to attack what Tua was doing, which I liked. And I didn't think Mapu looked out of place in that role either. I don't know if he's going to be a star free safety, but he's a good tackler, and it seems like they asked him to slim down. He looks thinner than he was when he was in college. So I do wonder if the long-term plan there is for Mapu to be a true free safety, and then Duggar can play more in the box and Peppers can play more in the box. And he's still good enough that you can still rotate the dial or whatever and bring him down when you want to.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He just doesn't have that top end speed. I don't think, at least.
Well,
I didn't see it. You know what I mean? That seems strange to me they would do that.
And that's why I wonder. That's why I mentioned the dropped weight, because it really only makes sense if they asked him to drop weight, and now he kind of has some of that juice, more juice than people thought he had in college. Maybe he loses a little bit of weight, or asked him to play in the box less, and he has. I don't know. And he wasn't really put in a position to do that on Sunday. But I think that's something to monitor going forward. Is they already feel comfortable playing him back there against the Dolphins in a game like this? And if they want him back there, I wonder what role they see Duggar in for the future.
Right. That's a good point. It's a good point. So we'll see. We'll kind of see where that goes. I just thought, the decision not to trade anyone, I think, was just interesting, right? And obviously they didn't trade for anyone, clearly, but they didn't trade anyone away, which I thought was kind of interesting. Apparently, there were no calls about Duggar. There were no calls about Mac Jones, right? They didn't really want to move anyone. They did supposedly inquire about Chase Young. I doubt they were going to give up much for Chase Young, but they did inquire about him, which why not? Like, do your due diligence and just kind of see what he's going to go for, because he's a guy that's been hurt a ton and frankly isn't very disciplined. I think that's one of the, you talk to people in Washington, talking to my buddy. I was with my buddy who's a Washington fan last night on Halloween, and he said, like, he's just super undisciplined. Like, he's not a guy that is going to be in the right lane. He's not going to be, so like, yeah, he's a freak and he like makes crazy plays, but then he's also super out of position at times because he's just doing his own thing and trying to beat his guy. And so, like, I don't know how well that would have flown here in New England, but it's always good to have.
He's had injury issues too, I think, right?
Big time. Yeah.
So it's, I don't know. He's too good of a talent to not at least ask what the price is if he's on the market.
Exactly. No, and that's why you call, just to see, and then third round pick doing that. No thanks.
And especially if because it's a late third round, it's a conditional third round pick that was given up for him, which is relatively cheap, but it's also, that tells you he's not, like, if you're going to trade for him, it's either a 1-year rental, which the Pats are out on, or you're trying to sign him, and that tells me, again, like we said before, he's not re-signing. So, he's
but
just
a conditional. So here's what I don't understand. Did they get a conditional third round pick?
It's from
who traded for him?
San Fran, because the conditional picks are a year ahead, so it's from like last year's free agency stuff. Like,
but they know they're getting a conditional third.
I believe
compensatory pick.
It's the Sorry, did I say conditional? I meant compensatory.
Right.
But
they haven't announced the compensatory stuff.
I believe it's the compensatory pick from one of the coaches.
Right, that's what it was. No, you're right. Yes. Yeah. Right, because D'Amico Ryans is hired, so you get a compensatory third. Right. Yeah, that's correct. Okay. From. That makes sense, because I was like, wait a second, they haven't gotten, because I had read that too, and then I couldn't remember how they had a compensatory already, and that's exactly what it was from. Yes. So, anyways, look, I think ultimately it's one of those situations where, so Light Edge asked a good question about this, right? He says, is it rebuilt, reload, replace? Like, what's the identity of the team? What are the goals? What's happening? And look, I understand that, right? But the trade deadline was doing nothing for that, right? It was doing nothing for that. Sure, you want to trade Josh Uche for nothing? Go ahead, trade Josh Uche for a bag of donuts. Like, what good does that do you? Like, it doesn't do you any good. Maybe you like Josh Uche a lot and you're going to sign him. Maybe you don't like him a ton, but you know he's going to go to the open market. And maybe he doesn't get crazy offers from people and you're able to keep him. I think it's worth the risk in exchange for a fifth-round pick. Like, a fifth-round pick does you nothing. It means nothing. And so, like, to me, keep him around, see if he can re-sign him, see if he goes on the open market and doesn't get exactly what he was hoping for. And you say, hey, look, here we are. We might be $1 million lower than these guys are, but it's home. You don't have to leave anywhere. You know the system, so on and so forth, right? So I think it's worth it to keep him around. I think Duggar stays. I think Duggar's not going anywhere. And at this point, I'd be surprised if Onwenu goes somewhere. I mean, look, you're in this situation with the offensive line, partly because you let guys walk, right? You traded Shaq Mason. You let Joe Tooney walk. You let Ted Karras walk. You traded or you let Trent Brown walk, right? So, like, all of these things happened. And, of course, then you traded back for Trent Brown. But all of these things happened. And, you just let those guys go away. Well, at some point, you got to start keeping your good players, right? And so everyone kind of turned around and said, oh, well, we want to trade this guy, and we want to tank, we want to do this, we want to do that. And it's like, well, yeah, but at the same time, like, you have to have pieces.
Somebody at some point.
Right. It was someone on Twitter was like, just trade everyone and just start over. I'm like, well, there's 53 guys on the roster. Like,
if that's even if that's what you want to do, then you're looking at a 5, 6, 7 year rebuild. Probably that's how long that's going to take. It's a tough position to be in. And I think what the question Light Engine asks there is a very fair one. And I don't know if we really, I don't think anybody really does know exactly where they are, including the people in the building. And that's okay at this point.
Right.
I think the question that's the question you're trying to answer over the next 9 games that they have left in this season. It's, do we have enough pieces already in this building that we can reload and try to attack next year? Or is it the type of thing where we think we're 2 years away? Or is this a full teardown rebuild?
Yeah.
This trade deadline tells me they don't think they're at a true teardown rebuild. That can change over the next 2 months here.
Yep.
And a lot of that is going to be, above Bill. If that's something Kraft's, Jonathan and Rob or Kraft's there, if that's what they want to do, then that's what's going to happen here, depending on what happens on the field. But I think that's the lens we got to watch the next 2-3 months.
Through. Well,
and yes, who wants to? I'm assuming that means who wants to resign in this mess, because there might be plenty that want to resign right now. Resign. I mean, that's kind of what you're trying to figure out. If they like Onwenu at tackle, that's a guy who you're gonna want to bring back because you need the offensive line. Same goes for Trent Brown at left tackle. I think if you're in a position where you don't want to bring either one of those guys back, you're far away from being a contender, because getting one tackle is hard. Getting 2 tackles, that takes time. That's not an easy proposition to get 2 tackles on your team. There's Duggar. Obviously, there's the big names. There's a guy like Hunter Henry. I mean, he's the type of guy where if you feel like you're within a year or 2 from being able to make a playoff push here, he's a guy you probably want back in the building. Kendrick Bourne, depending on what happens there. Some of those veterans, and it's the same on defense too. Trying to evaluate how good those players are, how close you are to contending, and then who fits your timeline. Because the flip side here is, if you don't think you're close, I mean, not only are you not re-signing guys, you're going to be trading away some of the guys on your roster.
Correct. And the other part of it is this, right? This isn't the NBA. Like, this isn't the NBA where guys go and chase rings and try to create a super team. Like, that's not how it works in the NFL. There's so much parity in the NFL that if you're chasing rings, it's going to be a mess for you. And I know, sure, you can sign with Kansas City, you can go, sign with Buffalo, whatever. It doesn't happen very often. The majority of the free agents sign with whoever pays them the most amount of money, whoever puts them in the best situation for themselves. Yeah. They don't really care about the team performance. And so, yes, there's a lot of
they're on the team, but
of course, right? But like once there's a lot of moving pieces, and I get it. But like, to say that now, listen, if Belichick leaves and you get a first-time head coach in here and whatever, maybe they don't believe in that, like, then there's a possibility. But there's still a lot of guys in the league that are like, I would play for the Patriots. I would play for Bill Belichick. Like you know what I mean? Like there's still a lot of people like that, right? And yes, players follow Brady to Tampa. That's true. But like players like Rob Gronkowski, who has publicly said many times that he'll only play football for Tom Brady and that's it.
Well, and it's also there's like if you are at the very, very, very top and you're an obvious Super Bowl contender in a tight window,
right?
Those are teams where you're going to get some advantageous free agent signings. Other than that, though, it's basically the same when it comes to signing guys. It's going to be 100%. Who gives me the best role and who gives me the most money.
Well,
I mean,
and not just that,
we're 2 years removed here, not even from the spending spree, or is it we're over 2 years removed from that.
Yeah,
from the spending spree they went on in free agency, and yeah, it's because you go to free agency and you spend on the best players out there. That was kind of their strategy, and
right,
it takes money to get guys in, but that's not just New England that's doing that. That's 28 teams that have to be the highest bidder to get a guy.
Well, that's the thing.
Number 2 or number 3.
Yeah, remember now, if you're one of the top teams, you don't have a ton of of cap space. You don't. So if I'm signing with Kansas City to try to win a ring, I'm taking a discount to do that. Mm-hmm. I'm taking less money to go somewhere and try to win. And in the NBA, that's fine because all the guarantees are there. In the NFL, you can't do that in the NFL. Guys don't do that in the NFL. Now, Tom Brady took a little bit of a pay cut because he's Tom Brady. He was able to still make a lot of money and get paid less on the salary cap. Like, it's a little bit different. Yes, he wasn't Peyton Manning getting paid an astronomical amount. It didn't matter for him because he said, well, I don't have to take all that money because they can put it elsewhere, towards the defense and towards this and towards that, right? And so, of course, everyone will tell you that backfired on him and didn't work. He won 6 Super Bowls with it, but I mean, I'm sure it backfired on him. But it's one of those things where like he didn't have to take all that money. But if you're a guy that's a top, top 10 player your position, you can't afford to not take the best money, right? So that's the hard thing, right? Is that it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you can sign those guys. I don't know. It's just in free agency, it doesn't matter. Like the team performance in free agency simply doesn't matter for 90% of the guys.
Yeah. And it's the guys who are usually taking discounts are older players, guys late in the career looking for a ring because they already made their money. And those aren't the guys the Patriots are really interested in at this point anyway. Like that's
Leonard Fournette.
They had to pay market value for Darrelle Revis back in the day. Like they had to set the market for Darrelle Revis back in the day to get that done at the peak of their Super Bowl window. That's how it goes. So I'm not worried about them getting players here. Maybe if there's a new coach, but also if there's a new coach, a chance for fresh impression and a new start for guys, and that's appealing too. So I don't.
Depends if they buy into what the new coach is selling, right? That's the biggest thing.
And how do you some feel will and some won't, and you hope enough will that you're good. And I mean, the other thing with this is when you hit free agency, you're always looking for value there. One of the best contracts the Pats had in 2021 was Kendrick Bourne, a guy who they got because he was like wide receiver 4 in San Francisco, and he was able to get a bigger role in New England. And if your team is not that good, you can promise or give opportunities for starting roles for guys who might not get that opportunity elsewhere. And if those guys end up being good bets, that's how you can win in free agency. Go back to like Mike Vrabel back in the day, the way they got him. Like some of those value guys get an opportunity and they break out and become more than anybody thought they'd be. That's how you win in that area.
Yeah, true. Very true. Gary's talking about the draft, and I think the biggest indictment of the Patriots, and one of the reasons why they don't have a ton of talent on this team, and Zach Cox, I believe, was the guy that tweeted this out today. But the Patriots have not signed a first day, a day 1 or day 2 draft pick to a second contract since Daron Harmon, who was drafted in the third round of 2013.
Did not realize he'd be closing our opportunities on draft.
I know. I love Daron Harmon, but it's crazy to think about that. Now, it's a little bit different, right? You drafted Jimmy Garoppolo. The only reason you didn't sign him to a second contract is because you had Tom Brady, so you had to trade him. Like, that would have been a guy. But that's still 2014. That was the next year. So it's
Yeah.
not as though you hit on a guy. And again, that doesn't include some hits in there, right? That doesn't include Shaq
James
Mason.
White isn't in that list. A guy
Right.
who played his whole career in New England.
Right. And so it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it doesn't tell the whole story, but when you're missing that consistently for 10 years now, it's not good. It's not good. And that's exactly the reason that they're in the situation that they're in. And there's a lot of reasons for it, and we can talk about, we can make excuses for them, and we can and I think there's some really reasonable things to say that they were taking big swings. They were trying to fill in depth, and then they were also drafting for need. Look, I said this before, but if I gave Bill Belichick truth serum and he said, look, I thought Nick Chubb was better than Sony Michel long term, but I needed a running back in 2018. Sony Michel was the guy. I knew if I had a running back, I'd win the Super Bowl, and they won the Super Bowl with Sony Michel. Now, he wasn't good the rest of his career because of injuries, but I don't care. If Belichick drafted him to win a Super Bowl and they won a Super Bowl, then mission accomplished. Well, sure, it wasn't a great pick, but it is what it is, Well,
and the other thing, Michel was the guy with less wear than Chubb coming out of that Georgia backfield, and the guy who had upside as a 3-down back in a way Chubb really doesn't in the passing game. And you can't foresee that he's going to get really bad knee issues 2 years in and completely lose his acceleration. You go to a guy like Isaiah Wynn, who was really good when he played and got really bad injury issues, and now isn't even a tackle anymore in the NFL. Can't really see that coming. Dominic Easley, a guy who is a borderline top 5 talent, who just didn't work out. There were injuries, and I think effort concerns from what I heard about him, if I'm remembering that correctly. And you're picking at the end of the first round with a guy who you think is that talented. There's risk there, but you take it because it's the end of the first round, and if you hit on it, then you got an Aaron Donald type guy there. Yeah. And it's not how it goes. I think a lot of what has happened in that stretch has been bad luck in the first round, and then just constant missing on defensive backs in the second, and defensive linemen or front 7 guys in the third.
Right. Well, and that's really what it comes down to. I mean, the Easley one is one of the most egregious ones where you knew he had bad knees. You knew it. You drafted him knowing he had bad knees, knowing he was a guy that wasn't super coachable, but when he was on the field and when he was focused, he was a beast. It was a recipe for disaster, and it was a disaster. And it was just what are we doing? But they were trying to catch that lightning in the bottle. They were trying to get a guy that was a great interior pass rusher they haven't had really ever. I mean, Wilfork is a phenomenal player inside, but he wasn't really a pass rusher. I would say they haven't had a real legitimate interior pass rusher since Richard Seymour. You know what I mean? It's just they don't have a guy like that. And so you draft a guy like Christian Barmore, he's pretty close to that, right? And so but then you also pick up a guy like Daniel Ekuale, who's pretty good at it. Now, Ekuale doesn't necessarily do it as often and consistently as Christian Barmore does.
He's injured reserve now.
And he's also on IR now. But but that's kind of the idea. So it's one of those different things. And so, and look, Ed, I understand that winning has some influence. I get it. The Davante Adams situation does not. It has nothing to do with winning. That is to do with winning.
I have no idea. Did Josh McDaniels just not learn a single thing from his first go around? Because the first time what he did was go to the AFC West, immediately alienate the quarterback that was liked by the fans.
Yep.
Traded him away for a different guy who wasn't as good. The team fell apart, and that was it. And they got their star receiver mad in the process. Here, you add a star receiver in year 1 who comes to your team because he wants to play with that quarterback specifically. That is why he came to your team.
Yep.
And you immediately do the same thing and alienate the quarterback, trade him away, bring in a different guy, and
it just made no sense.
It's literally, it's the same exact thing that happened in Denver. So I don't know what Josh McDaniels is doing there. I think he gets a little bit underrated as a play caller now because of how things have gone with him as a head coach and the frustrations we had at points in New England. Really good play designer, pretty good play caller. The management skills, it's
bad, real bad.
If you got Davante Adams on your team and you can't figure out a way to make him work, that's coaching.
Right. I mean, and again, like you said, he played with Derek Carr in college. That was the whole selling point. He played with Derek Carr in college. He's excited. He's coming. He had a great year last year. Derek Carr was fine, but nothing special. But like, you bring in Jimmy G. Like, who the hell is Jimmy G? Stinks. Like, I don't understand where you thought Jimmy G was good. It doesn't make any sense. He's the same guy. He's the same guy as Derek Carr,
but more conservative. So you use that good receiver less. It makes no sense. And it's the other thing too. If you're going to make a move at quarterback there, which I think is fair because Derek Carr is not that good,
right?
You have to have a conversation with Davante Adams in there because he came for that reason. He's a really good player, and you want him to buy in. So you have to say, "Hey, I know you came to play with him. We're going to have to make a move, but we're doing it for this guy, and it's Lamar Jackson we're going for." Well, I'm sure Davante Adams wouldn't be upset if it was Lamar Jackson they'd made the move for instead, but here they are. It's just mind-boggling ability to not manage the people, the human beings that you have on your roster for two consecutive head coaching jobs in the same way.
It's crazy. It's just one of those things. And it's funny because, of course, everyone then attacks the Patriot way and says Belichick. And, of course, now Belichick's not winning without Brady. So, that's, of course, all the storylines. The Patriot way is really the Brady way and all this other crap and like whatever, right? But, like, the thing is that, yes, Belichick can be a hard ass. Of course. But at the end of the day, man, it's like he's not the players love him. He is a master relationship builder. Everyone that plays with him outside of a few random people, right? Like he's the one, right? And there's probably Asante Samuel too doesn't like him either. But like there's a few guys that have played for him that don't like him. Beyond that, everyone else likes and respects him. Everyone. James Harrison came in. I was like, I wanted to hate these guys, man. And Brady and Belichick were awesome. Like, what am I going to do? You know what I mean? Like, and so it's one of those things as a guy that's played against him his whole career and wanted to hate them so bad. And he came in and was like, whoa, these guys are like really down to earth and like interesting and cool. And like, it's building those relationships is not easy. Building a culture where it's challenging and they push you to be your best at all times and they try to keep you on edge all the time, but also where you're appreciated and loved and you can have fun with them. That's not an easy balance, right? It's a hard line to toe, right?
And you got to win as part of it, too.
Well, that's part of it. If you don't win, then people don't buy in,
Yeah. And winning cares a lot. Look at the Seahawks in 2013 and 2014 and all the drama that's come out since then.
Yeah.
It worked when they were all together. When they were all on the same team and they were winning, it worked and they were able to make it happen. And
so it's just it's hard. It's hard. It's a hard situation. But again, I think Josh McDaniels, it was surprising it happened so early. It was really shocking that it happened in the middle of the night. Like that was stupid that it happened in the middle of the night. But I just thought like it's silly. Like he deserved it. He 100% deserved to be fired. And they were going to do it at the end of the year. Adams was super like your star receiver who you're paying a ton of money to is pissed off. The entire world can see he's pissed off. And Mark Davis is sitting here fuming, saying, F this, dude. Like, get this coach the hell out of here. Put the rookie quarterback in. Because, to me, the last straw to me was when Jimmy G gets hurt and you start freaking Brian Hoyer instead of Aiden O'Connell. And it's like, what are we doing? Like, I get it. I understand. Like, but Brian Hoyer stinks. We know Brian Hoyer stinks. Like, put the rookie in who's looked good at times. It's just stupid.
Yeah, it was. But when Hoyer came in and immediately looked better than Jimmy G, too.
Right.
When they played New England. It's just not good, man. And the other thing is, if you're going to fire him immediately after that game and then trade Davante Adams because he doesn't want to be there. And get back what you can for him. I think that the contract thing makes it difficult, but my theory going back to the offseason too was that Davante Adams should have been in Detroit. I thought that made perfect sense for all. I also thought if Tom Brady didn't retire, that he'd end up in Detroit.
I know
that would all work out together, which didn't happen. But still,
but you know what though? The other part of it too for me is that it's a situation for me that is supposedly one person said they didn't even answer the phones yesterday during the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Right? Like they didn't even answer the phones because why would you? You're getting fired in the next few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you trading it? Why am I helping out the next guy? Screw that, dude. And it's a shitty thing to do. But you're right. The game ends. See you later, dude. You're fired. And then tomorrow we can handle, tomorrow someone else can deal with this, right? And so I really think, I wonder, I don't know, but I wonder, like, if he was going to fire him at the end of the year, and then Josh basically, like, knew he was getting fired at the end of the year and was like, dude, screw you, man. I'm not trading anyone. I'm not doing anything. And Mark Davis is like, all right, that's it. Like, see you later.
The flip side is they watched what happened in that football game and said, we just got to pull this now. And while figuring it out, they're like, we're not doing anything at the deadline.
Right. Maybe.
Until we figure out what's going on here.
So I don't know. But anyways, so all right, let's hit a break. And then we'll come back. I know you had one thing you wanted to talk about the Dolphins game.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about Belichick just a little bit. And then
I got an observation about the Dolphins in that game that will relate back to New England and kind of, I think, strategy going forward and evaluating what they have now.
All right. So here comes a break, and then we'll go from there.
Snap into the action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Ages 21 and up and present, Massachusetts. Hope is here. First online, real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Play it smart from the start. GameSenseMA.com or call 1-800-GAM-1234.
All right. So we are back. So what's that thing, the observation you had about the Dolphins game? What do you got?
I want to go back to the second touchdown drive the Dolphins had. And I think how ridiculous it was and how the way it played out. And I think what it means for the quarterback position in New England. So the context here, this is when it was, right after the Dolphins had scored that touchdown to Tyreek Hill. Patriots get the ball, don't do anything with it. They go backwards and they punt the ball to Miami. Dolphins get the ball at the 46-yard line. I had Jessica Brand check this stat for me. And what she had told me that the Dolphins then went on a 14-play, 54-yard touchdown drive. That's 3.7 yards per play on a touchdown drive.
3 yards in a cloud of dust.
3.7 yards would be the lowest yards per play of any team in the NFL right now. And as far as she could tell, at least since 2001, since StatHead has tracked it, that is the most plays for that, or the shortest yardage for that number of plays in a drive ever.
Wild.
And you look at the way it happened. You have a 3rd and long in there where the Dolphins pick up enough yards, go for it on 4th, get it. 3rd and long, they pick up enough yards, go for it, get it. 3rd and goal, they get the penalty on the pass interference. But the takeaway in there was that this Dolphins team is almost like the Eagles in a way. The Eagles, you have to play because if it's 4th and 1 or 4th and 2, they have the first down. That's basically how that's going to go. And the way Miami's offense is to defend in short yardage, they can be so aggressive with it. And there's not much you can do. They ran screens on 3rd and long both times, and they picked up most of the yards they needed. And by most conventional stats, you say they picked up most of the yards, but not all of them. So it's not a successful play because it's 3rd down. You didn't get the first. To Miami, it's a success because you get close enough that they can attack you. The 4th and 4 that they picked up, Patriots covered it perfectly.
Yep.
Didn't matter because Tua scrambles and picks it up. The second one, it's a 4th and 1. They run a screen pass that gets, I think, 2 yards, maybe 3 yards. And both of those plays were ones where the Patriots have to line up in a certain way to defend it. And it just leaves something open because they're that hard to defend. The same thing goes for the plays before that where they ran the screens. Why do the screens pick up so many yards? Because you are terrified of what those receivers are going to do to you. You have to play off. The I didn't think the Patriots had a bad drive at all. I thought the Patriots actually had a drive that you would usually consider a good defensive drive by any conventional metric or anything, and it's a touchdown for the opposition. What it comes down to is the way you can threaten with an offense and Tua. I thought Tua was really, really good in this game going back. He was very accurate. He didn't make bad mistakes except for that one pick that he threw.
Right. Yeah.
And he was very good at anticipating what the defense was going to do. And we've talked a lot about what it takes for Mac to be successful in the NFL. And it's a lot of the same things we talk about with Tua. It's anticipation, it's reading defenses, putting the ball where it needs to go, driving throws because you don't have the strongest arm and making up for it. And Tua's ability to read plays with anticipation, deliver the ball on time. There were a number of plays there where it's the same thing we talked about with the Patriots offense, where you need to pick up just small chunks of yards at a time because you're working. That's the way the field's working, and he's hitting it on time, under pressure, every time. And when he makes mistakes, it's almost never interceptions. And the gulf between watching him and watching what Mac does, I think, shows how far Mac will have to go to get to that level. I was surprised by just the difference in mental ability on both sides there. And I came out of this week still feeling like I wasn't 100% sure on where I was with Mac, and watching Tua and what's in the division there. I think Josh Allen's a better quarterback than Tua. And watching what he did, it's all right. I don't think Mac is going to get to this level, and he just can't do it like this. And it needs to be somebody else back there. Maybe not next year, but if we're going to win Super Bowls again, it's going to be with a different quarterback.
100%. And look, I think ultimately what it comes down to with Mac Jones is that, the Patriots they thought that he'd be able to win with his mind. They thought that he'd be able to outsmart people before the snap, pre-snap, post-snap, things like that. He hasn't done it. He did it a little bit his rookie year. He did it well for a rookie his rookie year. He hasn't done it since, right? And I get it. I understand he had a bad offensive line. I understand. I get it. He had a bad offensive line. You know who else has a bad offensive line? Tua.
Yeah.
You know who else has a bad offensive line? Josh Allen. You know who else is a bad offensive line? Zach Wilson. These guys have – Zach Wilson is playing better than Mac Jones right now. Zach
a lot of bad offensive
Wilson.
Yeah, and it's watching Tua – the way Tua was stepping into throws with his line was different. Because then you go back and you watch the next Patriots possession, the one before, and they're calling plays where there's guys open and Mac's not seeing it, and he should be seeing it. And part of the reason he's not seeing it is because he's not stepping up into pockets that are there. And that's kind of – it's the thing we've talked about with Mac for a while now, and I don't know exactly what caused it. Maybe it is the offensive line that's given him PTSD, and that's it, and he's broken. But I don't see it getting fixed anytime soon. He's not stepping it up into pockets. He's not reading out the field.
Right.
We talked about it for the Miami game. We talked about it for the Vegas game. We talked about it all season long, and he's just not. The process isn't working there. He's not playing like a smart quarterback when he's on the field. There was a play where they could have gotten a 15, 20, 25-yard play to Pop Douglas, and instead he's not stepping up into the pocket. He's not finishing his progression. He's throwing an incompletion. And that was right before that Miami drive. And just watching the way that happened.
Right. Well,
you compare it.
How about the one with Devontae Parker? He's getting Parker open for a touchdown on a slant, and he just doesn't throw it to him, right? He has Devontae Parker open for a first down where he takes a sack, and he's looking at Ramondre Stevenson running a route against Jalen Ramsey. Like, what are we doing, dude? He's just staring down Ramondre, doesn't even look across the middle for a wide open Devontae Parker. And it's just that's the type of stuff for me where I don't get it, right? I don't get it. And I know Ed obviously is a big Mac Jones guy. I get it. I understand. People want to like Mac Jones. People, want to defend Mac Jones.
I don't want to have to go look for another quarterback because that's hard.
Right. But he's not the guy. He just simply is not the guy.
Not this version of him. If he, maybe he turns over a new leaf and shows all of this for the rest of the season. I doubt it, but if he does, I'll change my opinion on him.
Well, right.
But we've seen a lot of Mac Jones looking like this, and some of this was happening in his rookie year when he had a good offensive line and some decent weapons around him and a good play caller and all that.
Right. And in 2021, they treated him like a rookie. They didn't open up the total offense. They treated him like a rookie. 2022, they didn't. This year, they didn't. everyone asked, like, why did Bailey Zappi look so different than Mac Jones? The reason why Bailey Zappi looked different than Mac Jones is because they let him run the offense as if he was a rookie quarterback.
And they also
said,
played.
You're throwing to this guy. Don't throw it to anyone else. Don't even look at that guy. Just throw to this guy.
They played the Lions and the Browns too,
right?
Both of which were ranked as the worst defense in the NFL the week that they faced them. That helps,
right? And so like that helps too. But it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, they treated him like a rookie. Anytime you've treated Mac Jones as anything other than a rookie, he's looked like crap. I mean, like at some point, we're gonna have to sit here and say we can talk about the offensive line, and we can talk about the weapons, and we can talk about last year it was because Matty P was here, and now this year it's because of the weapons. Well, now wait a second, what weapons did he have in 2021 that he doesn't have this year? Aren't his weapons? I would argue his weapons this year are better than the weapons he had in 2021. So so that's the thing about that, right? And so, and look, here's the problem, right? And I think this segues nicely into what I want to talk about next, and that's Bill Belichick. Is that the issue that I have, and the thing that sucks about this is that the haters, the Bill Belichick haters, the people that have hated Bill Belichick since he got here because he doesn't talk to the media and he's not happy with the media and all this bullshit, those people are going to win. Right, mm-hmm. Because they're gonna sit here and say Belichick sucked without Brady and he was never good and he was blah, 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 and all that crap, right? And I honestly, what I want to have happen, I want Bill Belichick to go somewhere else and win a Super Bowl somewhere else, just so I can say, you morons, this is what you had, right? Yeah. And so that's the situation. So, but anyways.
And I think based on how the defense has played, I think like the fact that they gave up 31 points to Miami, I think had a lot more to do with how good Miami is than any issues on the Patriots defense, except for, personnel with guys being hurt.
Yep.
You could see the difference in the talent there that was apparent. Because I thought the Patriots probably played about as many good plays on defense as the Dolphins had on offense. But the explosive plays were kind of the difference, and it was those two blown coverages on touchdowns that did it. Right. And Patriots only had one on kind of a blown coverage with Kendrick Bourne there. But no, Belichick still has it. I don't know exactly how good he is in this modern NFL, but that doesn't change anything about his legacy, because when it was the modern NFL in 2001, what it looked like that year, he was really good. And it was the modern NFL with the K-gun offense and the Bills, he had a defensive game plan so good they got him in the Hall of Fame. I mean, it's not
right.
Every season's a new puzzle. Every season's a new game here, trying to figure out what the strategies are in the NFL. And I think he's gotten slightly behind the times with a quarterback who just isn't that good right now. A quarterback who isn't that good is like the thing that gets coaches fired. That's got to be the number one thing that gets a coach fired in the NFL, is having a quarterback that isn't that good.
Yeah. The one thing that I think you can criticize Bill the most for is not having a super progressive offensive coach come through his tree. So that's one of the things for me where I can look at it and say, you should have brought someone in from the outside. You should have brought someone, maybe not necessarily McVay, right? But like somebody like a Sean McVay, their coaching tree, some like dumpy assistant coach, and just bring this guy in as an offensive assistant, right? And let him work his way up into offensive coordinator, and like let it go from there, because you held on to Josh McDaniels forever, and then he left. And then instead of bringing in some young hotshot, you brought in Matty P, and that was a disaster. And then when Matty P didn't work out, you brought back Bill O'Brien. And it's like the same thing. We're running this same offense that we ran with Tom Brady when the NFL looked very different 15 years ago, right? And so, and I think that's, I think that's one of those things where it's difficult because, it's hard, and that's one of those things. And it's funny, Jeremy made a comment about Belichick's coaching tree and how Belichick's coaching tree is so bad and it's an embarrassment and this and that. Go take a look. Just out of curiosity, go take a look at the 1993 and 1994 and 1995 Cleveland Browns. Just take a look. Just peruse. I
think you'll recognize some of the
that
names.
Coaching tree. You might recognize every freaking one of them. So it becomes a situation where it's like, yeah, the guys, he was so good in New England, and he was so good in New England because he did things a certain way. And I think guys fell into that trap of wanting to be that certain way that he was in New England, and it just doesn't work, right? One of the reasons why Belichick failed in Cleveland, and it's not the only reason, but one of the reasons he failed in Cleveland is because he tried to be like Bill Parcells. He came from Bill Parcells' coaching tree. He tried to be like Bill Parcells. He wasn't Bill Parcells. When it wasn't working, then he got fired. And he realized that, and he said, I'm going to grow from that, and I'm going to not be Bill Belichick, Bill Parcells. I'm going to be Bill Belichick, right? And he's done that. And I think that for whatever reason, his coaching tree hasn't figured that out yet. And I don't know why, but they haven't.
Well, he also failed in Cleveland because they announced during the season that the team was getting moved.
That's also true.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. We've been doing the whole coaching tree discussion with Belichick since like 2005 with Charlie Weiss and Romeo Crennel, and it's like, it's 2023. I'm not that interested in it at this point. These guys are their own human beings who are going to live and die off of their own abilities as head coach, and how well Josh McDaniels does when he becomes a head coach has no bearing on how good Bill Belichick was. Like, Bill Belichick's job is to win football games, and he's been very, very good at that for a very long time now. And I don't think what his assistants went on to do later has any real bearing here on how he should be judged in his regard of his ability to win football games. I don't think it's interesting. We're looking towards the future and who they might hire next. If they want to bring in McDaniels as a head coach, please no. But I just don't. I don't find it that compelling a discussion at this point. We've been doing it for like 20 years in New England.
Right. It becomes a situation where you want to ask those questions, and it just whatever, dude. It just is what it is, and that's fine. And it doesn't matter. Like, people hate Belichick and have hated Belichick for years for a multitude of reasons, right? He's this and he's that, and I don't like him. And fine, that's okay. It's okay for you to hate Belichick, right? It's all right. You're wrong. You sound dumb, but you're only going to remember these few years, and so you're going to say that he was nothing without Brady, right? And so fine. But meanwhile, in the middle of a rebuild in 2020, with one of the worst lineups I've ever seen in my entire life, with a quarterback that literally couldn't throw the ball, they went 7-9. So
yeah, that was, and they were like a yard away from being 8-8 in Seattle. If they win that game and they push it through, like, that's right. Bill is still one of the better defensive coaches in the league currently, right now, in developing game plans to beat teams. I think he's still a pretty good CEO of running a football operation. I think we've just seen the brain drain of some of the pieces around him in general. They've had to churn through a lot of guys because these guys have gotten jobs elsewhere, and we've talked about that for a while now. And if you're trying to win football games and your quarterback isn't that good, you're going to have a hard time. And they haven't gotten good quarterback play since Tom Brady left, and I don't think that's really a surprise here.
Right, and that's and ultimately what it comes down to. And again, we got to understand too. I'm not giving a pass to anyone. I'm not saying it's not Bill Belichick's fault. I'm not saying he's done everything right, because he hasn't. Right, he hasn't. But you have to remember, we've missed on quite a few draft picks, of course. Right, every team misses on a bunch of draft picks. Every team.
Yeah.
We've also just had bad luck too, right? Like, we just have, it's just not. If you draft Jimmy Garoppolo in 2017 instead of 2014, well, you're in a different situation than you were, right? Where we let Brady walk after 2019, and you let Jimmy Garoppolo take over in 2020, right? And so and look, I know Jimmy G's not anything special, but he's at least a competent player when he's in the situation that he's working on, right? And so it's one of those things where it's things just didn't work out the way they had Stidham. They thought Stidham was going to be all right as the replacement. He wasn't. So they went out and signed Cam Newton, and Cam Newton brought a different style of offense, but really couldn't throw the ball. So there are some of those things. And again, the talent evaluation for offensive players has been awful. It's been awful. And that's simple.
And development.
Right? The talent evaluation and development for offensive players has been awful, right? It's been bad. But again, you cannot say they haven't tried. They tried and they failed over and over again, right?
Yeah.
They've devoted more assets to the offense side of the football. And by the way, it's not that close. They've devoted way more assets to the offensive side of the football than they have to the defense side of the football.
Especially when you're including cap space and some of the spending they've done.
Cap space and trades and all that other stuff. Like, come on, it's not close.
Going back to the Bill thing too. So when we're talking about the legacy of Bill, which some people like to bring up, what's happened the last couple of years is a blip compared to the best 20-year run any franchise has ever had.
Right.
Now, when it comes to there's the Florio report that he insisted was not a report, that was just something that somebody else had told him
so ridiculous.
He was hearing. Which, if you can't even say that it's a report, I don't really think I'm going to take it seriously. But at least a reporter is saying that some people are talking about the idea that Bill might get traded to Washington. And what I'll say, well, I'm not going to take what Florio says on it seriously just because he's not taking it seriously in the way he's saying it. What I will say is I think it makes some sense. Bill Belichick is still good at what he does. If the Patriots are looking to move on, getting draft capital back for a coach is an awesome thing. And I think one of the things, when you look at some of the teams that are successful, they kind of get a break when it comes to draft capital at some point along the line. Miami right now, why do they have Tyreek Hill? Because they were awful that one year. They got a top pick, and the Niners gave them a whole draft haul to come up, and they turned those picks into really good players by trading with them. One of the reasons the Bengals have gotten as good as they were is because Joe Burrow got hurt, and the team stank, and they got another high pick because of it. Things like that, where teams just kind of get lucky and end up with something in the draft. The Eagles have had a bunch of picks because the Saints keep trading with them and giving them extra first rounders in there. So things like that keep happening. And somebody's going to give you a first round pick for Bill Belichick, which I would have to imagine would be the price that you'd have to ask for at this point, especially with the results on the field have been and the discussions about him possibly being fired anyway. I think you at least have to consider that. I think it's a plausible idea. And Commanders are not a playoff team. I mean, you're looking at having 2 top 15 picks in the draft, with one of them probably being top 5, depending on what happens with New England here. But I mean, it could be 2 top 10 picks. It could be a top 5 and a top 15. I don't know exactly where it would break down, but that would be hard to pass up on. And that kind of infusion of young talent that you could get with that would be huge.
Well, the one thing, and look, I don't know. First of all, Floor is a dummy, but like, what I will say is that what he said that made sense, that I agreed with, and I said it as soon as I saw the report. I said it. Bill Belichick did not leak his contract details. He did not leak his contract details. Those details were leaked by the Crafts. That's what they were leaked by, was by the Crafts. Okay. They leaked that for to me, it was because this is our guy and we're supporting him. And I know people are talking about firing him, but we're not. But what Florio said, and I thought that made sense too, was that we do support him, and also we're not firing him. So what that means is that if you want him, you're going to have to come get him. And so, look, maybe they will do that. Maybe they won't do that. Maybe it'll be Washington. Maybe it won't. Maybe it'll be Chicago. Maybe it'll be because Eberflus is 100% getting fired. Chicago's going to have 2 probably top 5 picks. Now, if you're Chicago and you offered the Patriots, instead of giving them a first-round pick in 2024, if you have to offer them you don't have your second-round pick anymore, but a third-round pick in 2024 and a first-round pick in 2025, well, now I'd be okay with that still, right? And so the thing is that I just think for the Patriots, moving on for Bill Belichick may not be the worst idea. And if you're able to get a high draft pick for it, it makes a lot of sense. Now, look, at the end of the day, it comes down to, can you hit on your draft picks? The New York Jets have sucked forever. Why? Because they always miss on their draft picks. They just keep missing on their draft picks, and their coaching sucks. But like, if you continuously miss on your draft picks, you're never going to have good players, right?
It starts with the draft.
And so, like, the Patriots are going to have to turn it around and hit on some draft picks. It's going to have to happen, right?
Which they did this year.
Yeah, and they did. And so, and I would say that they did last year as well. Now, I understand that. I get it, right? I understand that maybe, whatever. You don't love the top of the draft, right? I don't love Tyquan Thornton either. Cole Strange is fine, but maybe not great. Okay. But it's one of those situations with the Patriots where I think you get Jack Jones, you get Marcus Jones, you got guys that could help out last year. Now, you didn't hit on all of those guys, but you hit on enough that you're like, okay, I feel pretty good about what they got last year. This year, again, like you said, Christian Gonzalez is a home run. I know he's hurt this year, but like, my God, that guy's a stud. Keon White looks like he's going to be a really good player. Marte Mapu, we'll see. City So looks like he's a good player. Like, it's one of those things for me that, like, I don't know, man. It's one of those that I look at it and just think, like, we're going to be all right if we continue to turn this thing around. But the other part of it is that they drafted all defensive players this year, which is great, and I'm happy about that. And it looks like Chad Rowland, after starting out the season kind of rough, he's turned it around and is kind of, leveled back out and has looked good. Bryce Behringer looks good, right? So, like, it looks like they hit on both those picks, which is great. But, like, at a certain point, you're going to have to hit on not just, and Pop Douglas had mentions too, which is true, right? They hit on Pop Douglas, it looks like, for a 6th-round pick, certainly, right? At a certain point, though, you're going to have to look at it and say, this is where we're at. We have to hit on solid offensive players, and not just offensive players, right? Quarterback, wide receiver, those are the positions you have to hit on, and they haven't yet.
Yeah, and that's it's where you're, regardless of who's going to be the GM or the coach for this team next year, because it could be Bill back, and I'm not going to get too upset if that is what it ends up being.
Right.
I would have questions, but we'll see where things stand at the end of the season, depending on how they pick things up here. And there's the Kendrick Bourne injury, and just what team is even going to be on the field. Right. But it's a good draft for offensive talent. I really like the receivers here. The more I watch them, the more I like this receiving class. I got to get into the quarterbacks more, but there's some good players there, and I think there's guys that are worth taking in the 2nd, 3rd rounds who you can at least take a flyer on and let them come in and compete. Usually don't get guys there, but I was thinking about this. One of the things I find interesting about the AFC versus the NFC right now in general, look at the quarterback disparity about how teams got them. Look at the AFC. Dolphins, 2 as their 1st-round pick. Josh Allen, the Bills' 1st-round pick. Mahomes, the Chiefs' 1st-round pick. Herbert, the Chargers' 1st-round pick. Burrow, the Bengals' 1st-round pick. C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, 1st-round picks. Trevor Lawrence, 1st-round pick. All of that stuff. And then you go over to the NFC. San Francisco, they got Brock Purdy. Yeah. And you got Seattle with Geno Smith. He was a 1st-round pick, but that's not how he got to Seattle. Come to the NFC East. Dak Prescott was a 3rd, 4th-rounder?
3rd round pick, I think, yeah.
Yeah. Jalen Hurts, 2nd-round pick. And then the NFC North. You got Jerry Goff, who, was a number 1 pick. Not for the Lions. He got shipped out of where he was. And you've got Kirk Cousins, who obviously that's not going to be. He was a
4th-round pick, right? Was he a 4th-round pick?
He was, but he got to Minnesota as the highest paid free agent. Even the Rams, with how they've been, they traded for Matt Stafford, who was also a 1st-round pick. But if you look at where the NFC is right now and the AFC, it's really interesting. The AFC is all these guys who drafted and developed their own quarterbacks. The NFC is, late-round picks, mid-round picks, trading for guys, signing guys. And I think that goes to show that there are multiple ways to skin this cat. And also, unless the Patriots are picking the top of the draft with an elite talent there, they might not be, picking a guy who's going to be able to fight with the AFC teams the way that those guys are drafting quarterbacks. So if you want to beat them, you might have to do things a little bit differently. Yeah. So we'll be able to talk, I think, more specifically about the draft as we get closer, as we learn more about the prospects, as we learn more about where the Patriots sit. Schedule gets easier here. Washington on Sunday. We didn't talk about the game here. I think it's very winnable. I don't think Washington's a very good team. I think their defense is atrocious. Down the 2 best pass rushers with nobody good in the secondary. So Patriots, I think, can win this game. And I don't know. I don't know how many games the Patriots are going to win with how hurt they are. I think they should win some.
The biggest thing for me is that Washington made it pretty clear they're going to tank. They traded their really what I think is their two best players.
Yeah.
And then you can make an argument Terry McLaurin is better, is whatever. But you get the idea. The two of their best defensive players they just traded for draft picks, straight up for draft picks. And so that is a challenge, right? But I see the thing for me is that what scares me is that typically when you think teams are going to tank, they actually turn around and play really well for a week or two, and then they look like terrible. So that's one of those things for me that that's what worries me. By the way, Jerry's asking about Davante Adams. Davante Adams, you're not going to be available until the offseason, and I would think that that he's not going to be what's it called? What am I trying to say? I don't think he's going to be traded because you're going to get a new coach. New coach isn't going to want to deal him unless he's such a malcontent that you don't have to.
Well, and I think, and I wouldn't, if the Patriots were a playoff team this year, I wouldn't mind trading for Davante Adams. I think that'd be a great move because you're giving up the 25th pick for Davante Adams for a team that was just a playoff team. That's not where they are. If they're picking top 10, you're probably not going to draft Davante Adams there because it's very hard to get a player that good. But I think you can draft a guy who's a very good wide receiver prospect who you're not going to have to pay the money that Davante Adams has. And I think that is and who's, in theory, you can re-sign and keep around. And that one player is a big part of your passing game for a decade plus. And I think that is kind of what you're going for. And I like the idea. I don't hate the idea of trading for Davante Adams. I think if you're trading for a guy, it's going to be a Justin Jefferson because he doesn't want to re-sign in Minnesota, or a Brandon Ayuk because he doesn't want to re-sign in San Francisco. If you're making a trade, I think you're going for that tier of player.
Yeah, 100%. And that's one of those things for me that when you start looking at, and I understand, right? I do get it where you sit there and say well, yes, but it's Davante Adams, right? He's a great player. And that is definitely true. But for instance, the Patriots traded for Brandon Cooks in 2017, right? They traded a first-round pick for Brandon Cooks. They only had him for 1 year, and then they ended up trading him back for a first-round pick. They traded it to New Orleans. It was the 32 pick. It was 32nd pick overall that they traded to New Orleans, right? New Orleans ended up drafting Ryan Ramczyk there, who is a fine player. Not a great player, but a fine player.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a situation where if you really needed a wide receiver, you draft a wide receiver in that situation. The interesting thing is Juju was taken in the second round that year. But it's one of those situations. Cooper Kupp gets drafted in the third round that year, right? So, Curtis Samuel got drafted a few, pick number 40. So there are guys that could have been had if you really needed a wide receiver. And and maybe they didn't love the wide receiver class. 2017 wasn't great, but the idea is that you're drafting a guy to help your team in the long run. Drafting Brandon Cooks helped for 1 year because you're trying to win a Super Bowl, and it got you the Super Bowl, and you end up losing because Brandon Cooks got hurt in that Super Bowl. Not only because Brandon Cooks got hurt in the Super Bowl, obviously,
the existence of Jordan Richards,
right? Partly because of that, and yes, Jordan Richards and Johnson Bad Mosey was playing corner for you, right? But the idea was that you trade for Brandon Cooks because you're trying to compete for a Super Bowl. You don't do that this year because you're not competing for anything right now. You're trying to build this team with young players and build around those players.
Well, and I think that's the other thing, too. If we come down the back stretch here and Mac turns a corner and you think you can win with him, and the offensive line turns a corner and we think we have a line that you can do, then maybe you're in a different spot. But, that's where we're going to see where they're at. I like you bringing up some of the second and third round receivers too, because I think there's a lot of depth in this year's receiver draft class, and they need offensive weapons. They need wide receivers. In theory, they should just go with the best wide receiver on the board wherever they pick and go from there. That said, they need offensive line help. They might need quarterback. They need a lot. you look at this draft, and there's a world where you can say, all right, you go offensive tackle in the first, wide receiver in the second, quarterback in the third, or you're going to go wide receiver in the first, quarterback in the second, wide receiver in the third, or whatever. I think you want to double dip in the first couple of days with receivers with some of the guys who could be available, and we'll see how they look here. But there's a lot of talent, and a lot of ways to approach this draft where I think you can get your offensive talent. Not necessarily just in the top 5 or the top 10, but top 50, top 100. I think you can get star receivers in that spot. Justin Jefferson, the guy we're talking about here, Brandon Ayuk, both guys who lasted well into the first round. I think Ayuk was a high second rounder, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, he was. Yep.
Yeah, T. Higgins, second rounder, I think.
Yep.
So
yeah, first pick in the second round, but yes, still counts.
Yeah, there's you can obviously mentioned Cooper Kupp. You can get receivers at a number of spots in the draft. So you got to draft it high, but I think the key is drafting multiple. Use 2 of your top 100 picks on receivers.
Correct. Well, and that's like in 2022, the Patriots spent a second round pick on a wide receiver, and they just drafted the wrong one. Now again, we've been over this, right? I don't know if George Pickens was on their list. He probably wasn't on their list, but don't you think the Patriots wide receiver room would look a little bit different if George Pickens was the number 1 wide receiver instead of Tyquan Thornton? You know what I mean? Nice. If they had drafted George Pickens last year instead of Tyquan Thornton, the wide receiver room would look a little different, right? So that's part of it where you sit there and say they could have done that, right? They could have, instead of drafting Cole Strange, drafted a guy like Christian Watson who went 34th overall, right? You could have done those things. So
who hasn't done much for Green Bay at this point either.
He has not. And so, but still, it's one of those things. And so, look, maybe Booty turns it around and he looks great by the end of the year. Maybe Demario Douglas is the guy that you want him to be. But at the end of the day, the rest of your wide receiving core isn't great, right? Yeah. You need weapons on offense. You have good players on defense already. Retain those guys. Look, I wanted City So to be a tackle. I think they drafted him to be a tackle. If you feel comfortable with Mike Onwenu at right tackle and you like City So at right guard, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying we're going to re-sign Mike Onwenu and we're going to leave him at tackle and we're going to leave City So at guard, even though we think he has some potential to play tackle because he's been really good at guard. And if that's the situation, then you leave him there, and it is what it is, So I don't know, but that's what I'm thinking.
The offensive line too. I mean, you're in a spot right now. It can still go a lot of ways. You might go into next year needing 3 or 4 new starters, and you might go into next year needing no new starters, depending on what happens over the next 2 months.
Correct.
Yep. I think what you want to see. And obviously, you got guys hitting free agency, but I mean, if you can retain them and keep them, you might be able to just bring back the offensive line if it looks good. And I think it looks better now than it has. Question is, can it go from better to genuinely good? I think that is the next step. And, that's going to be internal development of these guys. So and Strange, do they get better? Does Onwenu adjust to being a tackle? I think those are your big questions.
Right.
Right. And we'll see. And I think in an ideal world as a Patriots fan, they will probably lose every game from here on out except for the Jets one, because I'd like to beat the Jets. And you do that losing games like 34-30 in every single one of them, and the offense puts things together and looks good, and you're losing because the defense is hurt and you just don't have quite enough, and then you feel good going into next year and you feel like you're close. That's what you like to see. It's probably not what's going to happen, but I don't know. That's not TJ in the chat saying it's upset that we're giving up on this year and everybody's giving up on this year. Man, I don't want to, but you're down your best receiver, your best pass rusher, your best corner, your only explosive playmaker in special teams. I don't think there's a lot of teams that could withstand losing all of those guys and would still be good teams, and certainly not the Patriots. For this Patriots team to win, it was going to take a lot of cohesion from the guys at the top, and all of their playmakers playing well at the same time. And those playmakers are hurt right now. This team didn't have depth. We knew it didn't have depth. We thought this was a mediocre team that could play like a good team by playing together and putting together the pieces. And right now the pieces are scattered on the floor.
Yep. So, all right, let's move into the end of the show. By the way, congratulations to the Texas Rangers who won the World Series 5-0 today. Arizona had a no-hitter going for a while. I think all the way into the 7th inning, and then blew that.
Diamondbacks had an error in the 8th too, which spurred a whole Ranger, or it might have been the 9th.
Ninth, it was the 9th, yeah, because they scored 4 in the 9th, yeah.
Yeah, that spurred a whole run there that kind of sealed it. So congrats to the Rangers.
Texas has won, which is wild, dude. Texas has won 11 straight postseason road games, which is insane to think about.
Yeah, impressive stuff.
But yeah, 11 straight postseason road wins, and they are the official new World Series champions. So congratulations to the Texas Rangers. Okay, let's get into prop bets. We'll get into our prop bets for this week.
You want me to do my college game first, or do you want to do?
Oh yeah, let's do the college game first, and then we'll do the prop bets. Sure.
We'll keep this quick because we're looking at draft season. We're looking ahead for college games, and I think there's an easy one to highlight on your calendars for this Saturday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ABC. Number 5 Washington at number 20 USC. It's a high-powered Washington offense. A lot of receivers over there. Those are the guys you're going to want to watch. They got 3 guys that are going to get drafted who are all very good, including Rome Odunze in the first round and Michael Penix, the quarterback.
Yep.
And USC's got Caleb Williams, who's a bona fide top 5 pick, top 2 quarterback in this draft, and a guy with really, really high potential who's played up and down the last couple of weeks. So we'll see if he can rebound from some of that. And, it's very possible that some guys on offense for one of these 2 teams, possibly the quarterbacks, are going to be in New England in just a couple of months. So that's Washington at USC.
It's a good one. That's a good one. Michael Penix. Hey, they draft maybe the lefty quarterback work for Miami. Maybe it'll work for New England. You never know.
Maybe. I wonder if Connor Stallions is going to be in attendance for that game.
Ooh, Connor Stallions.
Have you seen this whole thing, Pat?
Yeah.
It's
this Michigan thing is ridiculous. It's
my favorite story.
It's so stupid. Like, it's so stupid. And I understand that, like, it's illegal, and it's like what, but like I could do it and then send it into the Patriots. Like, what? Like, you're filming. Like, I understand.
Now it seems like the guy was in disguise on the sideline at like a Central Michigan game, wearing like the Ray-Bans with the camera in them or whatever, recording things, which is just like that's just funny.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. We'll see. I'm a Michigan fan too, so we'll see what happens there. Yeah. But wild stuff.
Anyways, all right. So let's so we'll go to the prop bets. Prop bets, by the way, for those of you that are late to the party here, the loser of the prop bets is going to run at some point in the offseason the Patriots conditioning test, Patriots offensive lineman conditioning test. Last week, your boy climbed back, baby. 2-0 last week for me. 0-2 for you last week. So I am 4-12 on the season, and you are now 6-10. So it hasn't been a good year so far. It's been a rough year in the betting world for us. But nevertheless. So I'm going to go first, and you can go. I think slam dunk. This is a slam dunk home run, and for plus money, by the way. I'm going to go Miami Dolphins first half winner. Okay? Plus 110, which isn't plus much, but it's plus something. Here's why. Here's why I'm going Miami Dolphins first half winner. Because for these international games, there's a big time change.
I knew you were going time change.
Throws you all off whack, right? Miami went to Germany like on Monday. Kansas City is flying to Germany tomorrow night, Thursday night. They're not getting in till Friday. They're going to be all screwed up, and they might end up winning the game, but I think the beginning of the game, Miami's going to be more fresh. They're going to be ready to go. They're going to be acclimated to the time change, and so I think Miami's going to be ready to go, and Kansas City is not going to be ready to go. So I'm going Miami Dolphins first half winner Sunday morning.
I like it. Do you want to give your other one too, and then I'll give mine?
Yeah, sure. I can give both. That's fine.
Yeah.
My second is just an absolute disgusting game. I'm going Giants Raiders under 14. No, the number's 37.5. So I'm gonna go under 37.5.
I thought you were pulling the same thing I was there, because I'm also pulling the hater card this weekend. Under 37.5, but it's a different game. It's Browns Cardinals.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So Browns Cardinals under 37.5.
Yep, and I'm pulling the hater card on Will Levis under 204.5 passing yards.
Ooh, I like that.
Short rest, Thursday night game on the road against a good Pittsburgh defense. And I think he was more up and down than the highlights showed in his first game. I think it's going to come crashing back down to earth Thursday night. He's going to have a rough one.
All right. What's the number? 209?
204.5.
204.5. Hey. I'll tell you what, that I almost went. It's so funny because I almost went against Will Levis just because of that.
Yeah.
Right? Just because of that.
Yeah.
But it's so cool. Gary asked if Taylor is going to Germany. Taylor, I doubt, is going to Germany. I can't imagine he is. But my parents will be there. That's kind of exciting. My parents are over there right now. So
go say hi to them.
Look at that. Appreciate the kind words here, Pinga. Said never gave the guys a chance before. Lane and St. Jean are very good and level-headed. Respect. I appreciate that after the comment.
High compliment. That's what we try to bring.
That we were the lowest. Well, he started off by saying we were the lowest tier of Patriot supporters. So we've changed his mind, which is nice.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of hysteria in Patriots talk radio and Boston talk radio, and we're here to tone that down. We're your Patriots therapist telling you why everything isn't necessarily falling apart.
Things aren't good, but they're not as bad as people are telling you they are.
Yeah,
what we're saying.
We'll play it level. We'll play it level. Although it's looking for a quarterback in the draft is not where you want to be, and that might be where they are. But we're okay. We're okay.
Yeah.
We'll go after the games on Sunday and throw in the Super Bowl DVD and be okay.
Right, exactly. Yeah, remember the good times. So, anyways, all right. So that's that. You got your Patriots trivia, so we're gonna do Patriots trivia, and then we'll finish with this week in post history like we always do. But we'll go from there, and then we'll be out of here. And and Gary mentioned, I think it was Gary earlier that mentioned the Celtics won 155 to 104, 155 flipping points. The Celtics are on pace right now to go 82-0. It's gonna be a fun year.
Is 155 more than the number of points the Patriots have scored all year?
Oh my God, it's not even close. It's like triple. Maybe not triple, but it's definitely more points than the Patriots have scored this year. 100%.
Yeah.
No way.
Pats have scored 118 points. Yeah, yep. Celtics just outscored the Patriots in one night.
And by the way, Jason Tatum played 26 minutes and had 30 points. So
that was it's like a bye game in college basketball. You're just having a team come into your gym to beat them for some practice.
That was bad, dude. That was bad. And Pacers aren't good, but I mean, still.
They're not that bad. They shouldn't be that bad.
And RIP Bob Knight as well. Bob Knight.
Yes.
Bobby
trivia time?
Yes, let's do it.
For those who are new here, because we have somebody new, we do a trivia question at the end of every episode. First person to get the answer correct in the chat is going to be entered for a drawing to win something from the Pro Shop, which we're going to be doing for bye week, I think.
Coming up.
Yeah. So, last chance to get in before the first drawing here. Last week's question, which two Patriots had pick sixes in New England's win in Miami in 2019? Stephon Gilmore and Jamie Collins. Matt Menino was the first on that one.
Of course.
Yes. That's very good with the trivia.
If he doesn't win, it's going to be like this is going to be like the NBA lottery where he's got like 15 of them and then everyone else has like one or two and then he's going to lose. We'll have to freeze one of the envelopes.
We're going with an opponent specific one here. We're gonna have some fun with this one, Pat. We're gonna take a trip down memory lane for this trivia question. In 2011, Patriots offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien made headlines for his screaming match with Tom Brady on the sideline after the quarterback threw an interception in the end zone late in the fourth quarter in Washington. I'm sure that's a moment that we all remember. However, do you remember which Patriot player would then go on to seal the win by picking off Washington in the red zone immediately after that?
Ooh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
2011 Patriots looking for someone to get an interception on that team throughout your guesses. That was an iconic moment. I see the Taekwon Underwood in the chat there, TJ. That's the answer to a different question, which is who was Tom Brady targeting in the end zone on that pick? Which is
what Patriots defensive player intercepted? Who I don't even know who the quarterback was for Washington at that point. Who knows? One of the terrible quarterbacks. No way. Rex Grossman was still around then? No way.
Hold on. I have the
it was Rex Grossman
in one of my tabs, I'm sure.
You tell me Rex Grossman lasted 5 years after the 06 Super Bowl? There's no chance Rex Grossman lasted 5 more years there.
Let me find this out for you real quick. I got it. I thought I had the box score open. Still, I didn't. So I got to find it.
Oh, wait. Washington. What an idiot. Yes. You're right. It was Rex Grossman. You're right. Yeah. I was thinking Rex Grossman was still in the Bears. I'm like, there's no way he lasted 5 more years in the Bears, which he didn't.
Yeah, no. This is Washington. Yeah, that's why it's opponent specific. We got Bill O'Brien in here. I got Washington in here for this week. And the only hint I'll drop here is that it isn't typically the player plays a position where you wouldn't usually see interception. It's not totally wild. It's not something
it's not
crazy.
Like Vince Wilfork.
Yeah, but it's not like these aren't guys who are typically getting the picks.
All right. I like it.
It was a deflected pick. I had to go back and watch it before this, and it was a wild sequence. The Washington scored what should have been the game tying touchdown, and there was an offensive pass interference from Santana Moss on it in the end zone on Julian Edelman, which watching it back was a little bit ticky tacky. The Pats got away with one there.
We'll take it. Don't you miss the days when we used to get like actual calls? When the 50-50 calls would go our way instead of the other way.
It was nice. And before we do the trivia, I'm just going to plug this real quick.
Oh, yes, do it. Yes.
My hat here, this Papa Bear Spice Company. It's my dad's spice company. He just launched his own blend of spices today. So there's a 10% off sale on his website, papabearspice.com. I got a jar. It's an older jar now. He has a new label. There's a jar of his spices. It's like a chili rub. It's really, really good. He started using it for his chili, and then we just put it on all of the meat all the time, and it's fantastic. So I highly recommend you go check that out. And somebody in here asked if we shipped to New Zealand the other day. I think last week when this got mentioned, and my dad did add international shipping. I do not know how expensive it is, but that is an option.
It is available.
Yes. So, and for those new for the trivia question, the answer will be in next week's episode.
Yes.
Next Wednesday.
Yes, we will give the answer next week.
Who got it right and what the answer was.
Yes, exactly. So all right, awesome. That's a good one. All right, let's finish it up. Last segment of the episode. Here we go. Where are we? Here we go.
And now for something we think you'll really like. This week in sports history.
All right, so I have two. I'm gonna go. First. I'm going to say this day, November 1st, 1913, Notre Dame upsets Army 35-13 in their inaugural football game. Newt Rockne was one of their wide receivers, and not only did they win, but they actually used the forward pass effectively. Gus Dorius was 14 of 17 for 243 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. How about that? So the forward pass being used in 1913 by Notre Dame in their first ever football game, upsetting Army 35-13.
That reminds me, there's an NFL Films documentary out there somewhere, and I don't remember exactly what it's called. It's something like the history of like the football or the history of the forward pass or something like that. But it details the way the actual shape of the football has changed over time in the way that it has impacted the passing game, and go through some of the old moments that changed things, which that reminded me of. And it's very worth a watch. I mean, anything NFL Films does is worth a watch, but that in particular was one that stuck with me. It's a really good history of the game.
It's interesting. All right.
Yeah. Mine on this day, November 1st, 1924. Boston Bruins officially joined the NHL, becoming the first U.S.-based team to enter the league.
I love it. The
Montreal Maroons also joined, but they only lasted 14 years.
Yeah. I'm so happy you said that one because I really had 3, and that was one of them. So I'm going to give you the other one. And it comes with a little trivia question.
Ooh.
November 1st, 1916, Broadway theater owner and producer Harry Frazee and Hugh Ward, by the Boston Red Sox for approximately $700,000. Harry Frazee, of course, famously sold Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees. The question I have for you, the trivia question I have for you, is what Broadway show? Because what he did was sold Babe Ruth so that he could make a Broadway show. What Broadway show was it? that he sold Babe Ruth to fund? Do you know?
I know what it wasn't. I know it's not No Nanette. I know the play that he funded inspired No Nanette. I do not remember the name of the actual play. That
It was No Nanette. It was.
No, it wasn't.
Yes,
Okay,
it was.
there was somebody. I saw a whole post about this the other day where somebody dug into it and discovered like this whole long history about the play that it was. That was like, maybe I do have it wrong. But whatever it was, the play that inspired No Nanette in the history it has, because there were no living, like there's no descriptions of the play except for like short summaries, and there's no video recording of it. So I saw some guy online who was looking to find like a script of the one that, the play that inspired it and led to its creation. But I'm pretty sure it wasn't No Nanette.
Oh, wait a second. You're right. It was My Lady Friends.
That's what it is.
Yep. How about that? There you go.
Which was like the same guy as No Nanette, or I don't know the exact story there, but
which is interesting. Yeah. So there you go, My Lady Friends, and not No Nanette, which is my goodness. I mean, what an absolute disaster. It's even worse because no one's even heard of My Lady Friends. At least No Nanette is like famous. What a nightmare. What a disaster.
I can only imagine Boston talk radio back in the day when that happened.
Man, I just think, it's just, brutal. Just absolutely brutal.
What some of the talking heads today say about that then?
Oh, I can't even imagine. I don't even want to think about it. I don't even want to think about it. You know, imagine just selling your best player for money, just giving your best player away for money, and then using that money
cash for yourself than to build the team.
It's crazy. That's absolutely insane. But that's the way it was back then. I mean, it's just, So, but what are you gonna do? So, anyways, that's what we got for you today. Pretty good show. I like that.
Gary had a question in the chat too. If you win the draw and you come from a country that's abroad, how would you claim the prize? I think we got to talk about this, Pat, specifically, but the prize might end up just being like a gift card to the pro shop, or we'll get you something from the pro shop and have it shipped to you or something.
Well, and so that's kind of the idea, is that I was going to do probably a $25 gift card or something like that to the pro shop or something around there. What I'll do for you, Gary, is if you do win, or if someone overseas wins, and it's difficult to order. I don't know how it is ordering from the NFL shop online. I have no idea. But if it's difficult ordering from the NFL shop online, I will just buy you something that you want of that value and just mail it to you myself. I don't care. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
I'm sure we could find. I'm sure Fanatics has some international site that we can.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, I'm sure they have an international. I just don't know how it works. So So the way it works is that the pro shop online, when you buy something from the pro shop online, you're not buying from the pro shop. You're buying from Fanatics. The pro shop doesn't have an online thing. So you're buying directly from Fanatics, but you can use your Patriots. I'm pretty sure you can use your pro shop. I don't know. I'm not sure. We'll figure it out. I think the easiest thing to do. I still think the easiest thing to do might just be to buy something from the pro shop and kind of go and say, hey, whatever. We'll figure it out. But we're gonna get you guys something from there. So
something approximately $25 in value that is Patriots related that will be in your possession.
Exactly. And Gary, love watching the podcast. So appreciate you. Thank you for coming out. We appreciate you guys coming through.
We'll be here twice a week the rest of the way.
Yeah, some new people as well.
Off-season. At some point here during the season, we're probably going to be starting to flip the clock and look at just straight up draft stuff. So,
well, that's the thing, is I usually don't get into my draft stuff until like January, and it's going to start a lot earlier this year, man. It's going to start a lot earlier this year, especially if they keep playing this way. And you never know. Maybe they'll turn it around. Maybe they'll win on Sunday and they win the next week, and in Germany, and all of a sudden they'll be 4-6.
Maybe moving. Maybe Juju finally finds it now that he's in a different role. That is one thing I'm interested to see here, is that they were using him as the slot guy before, and I wonder if Demario Douglas being the slot guy and Juju playing the role that Bourne did maybe unlock something different. We know he doesn't have the quickness anymore, and maybe being a bigger body in a slightly different spot lets him do some stuff. I don't know. I think he kind of has to be on the roster next year unless you're eating money. So you can find a way to get something out of him as even a depth guy that helps you for building the team.
Right. Can't be worse than it's been. So,
don't say that.
It can't be. With him, there's no way. It can't be worse than it's been. I mean, unless he pulls a Jonnu Smith and drops a pass directly into the defender's arms for a pick six.
No,
you know what I mean?
What's worse than this would be him playing well enough to convince us all he's actually good and he found his role in the offense. And then next year we think we have something and he goes back to what he was. That's the worst case.
That's true. But I mean, this year it can't be worse than it's been. You're right. Long term, you are right about that. So, all right. Well, that's it, guys. Thanks for coming out. We appreciate you, and we will talk to you on Sunday after the game. I will be later. I'm taking my daughter to her first regular season game. She's very excited about it. My brother-in-law is a Commanders fan, so him and my sister are going. Sister's a diehard Patriots fan, obviously, and so it'll be fun. It'll be fun. The four of us are going together, and I'm really excited about it. So. So we're pumped. We're pumped. It'll be fun, and we'll do a show. Probably set.
Halftime is a Sunday.
Halftime of Sunday Night Football is typically what we do after home games. So we will see you guys Sunday night. All right, and thanks for coming out, and we'll talk to you soon.
Have a good rest of your weeks.